Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here. Now, there's been a lot of discourse recently about the battery life of the Switch 2. It's the same kind of story that we heard with the Switch 1, you know, it's a new console, and the battery life isn't quite as up to snuff as people would like, especially considering we've just come off the OLED and the Switch Lite and the, improved battery life Nintendo Switch as opposed to the launch one, which didn't have a bigger battery, it just had a more efficient SoC, system on a chip. There's been loads of chatter online from people saying things like, I only got an hour and a half playing a certain game, or I only got an hour playing a game in certain instances. And I'm not refuting those claims, I do believe them to be genuine, or at least not be intentionally misleading. I think people genuinely believe those are the hours that they spent playing the game, but I do think that there is a better explanation for it. But there's no better explanation than science. It would be foolish of me to make a video about battery life without testing it myself. Now, there's a number of different things I could have done. The typical thing is to do something like, I don't know, go onto the home, not the home screen, but the main menu of something, or just go into a game and do something to make sure that the console doesn't turn off. You know, usually it's like a rubber band around the, right stick or something like that, just making the camera go round and round. Which is fair enough, but I don't really consider that to be a real use case, you know? I want to be doing the whole kit and caboodle, this set menu, as it were. I want to be loading new things. I want to be, sort of going through loading screens, going online, and all that sort of thing. And so I thought, well, better game to test than the flagship of the Switch 2 itself. Yes. Mario Kart World. I ummed and ahed about a couple of different things, and I ran some tests where I played it for an hour and then I worked out how long, how much battery that used, how long it would last subsequently. But again, I'm kind of a stickler for doing things properly, and I wanted at least one, proper run through. So I did that. I turned the screen up to maximum brightness to really push it as much as I can. I sat down, I put a timer up on my iPad, and I just sat down and played Mario Kart World solidly until the battery ran out. From 100%. It was absolutely at 100%, and it went all the way to zero, all the way to the point that the console turned itself off. Not only that, I did a time lapse. Like you do for a sunset. I filmed the whole thing, I didn't stop even once. Except for the one time where I did because I really needed a Wii. And nobody can deny me a Wii. I cannot emphasize enough how much I wanted it to be a real-world example, so I did what I wanted to do. I went online, I did some races, I went online, did some knockout tour, I did some free roam, quite a bit of free roam actually. I was really enjoying the missions, and I played it for as long as I could. So how did I get on? 2 hours and 10 minutes. 2 hours and 10, write that down. Which, honestly, is about what I expected. Mario Kart World is probably using as much of the Switch 2 as any sort of AAA first-party game. You know, it's very well made, don't get me wrong, but it's not a light game. It's not like playing, I don't know, Super Mario World or something like that, you know, on the NSO. What would that be? What would that be? As happy as I was with what I got, I wasn't completely satisfied and I wanted to get some more information for you. And in this instance, I did extrapolate. I'm not going to sit down for however many hours and play, 4 other games. So instead, I sat down, I played for 20 minutes, I recorded the starting percentage and the ending percentage of every single game I tested. And I wanted to do a range, different games of different weights, so that I could get as broad an idea as possible. Now, Nintendo does say that the battery life will range between 2 and 6.5 hours. And by my tests, I don't know what you're doing to get 6.5 hours. Maybe you're just on the home screen with nothing running. But for Super Mario World, using Nintendo Classics, as they're calling it now, not Nintendo Switch Online, maybe it's Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo Classics, I don't know, I don't care. The red one. In 20 minutes, I lost 6% battery, which extrapolated out to the entire 100% of the battery would come to around about 5.5 hours. But truth be told, Super Mario World is like an ultra lightweight game, you know? It's emulating a SNES game at the end of the day. It's always going to be low power. So I thought I'd take a step up and go with Sonic Mania. It's a similar sort of idea, I know, but it's still a modern game rather than Super Mario World. And in 20 minutes of Sonic Mania, I lost 7% battery, which, extrapolated out to the full 100%, is 4 hours and 45 minutes. Taking it a step further, I then went on to Metroid Dread, you know, a last-gen but still AAA first-party game that realistically was going to be using a decent amount, but a decent amount in terms of Switch 1, which I thought was quite interesting. And over the 20 minutes, I lost 9% battery, which extrapolated for the full 100% is about 3 hours and 45 minutes. I was gonna leave it there, but I thought, no. Let's do one more. And so I did Cyberpunk 2077. Because I can't get enough of it. In 20 minutes, Cyberpunk 2077 used 16% of the battery, which, extrapolated out, is 2 hours and 5 minutes, which realistically means it's probably going to be the same as Mario Kart World, which was 2 hours and 10 minutes. And that last 1% really lasted a hell of a long time with Mario Kart World. I do want to reiterate that all of these extrapolated numbers shouldn't necessarily be taken at face value. You know, just use them as a rough guide, because I haven't sat down and done a full test all the way through. You know, it's just to give you an idea. It's just an idea. I ran out of time. So it seems if you're really pushing the Switch 2 to the limit, you can expect about 2 hours of battery life out of it. Is that amazing? It's not amazing. Is it acceptable? Yeah? Don't get me wrong, I would take a bigger battery or a longer battery life any day of the week, especially after using the OLED for so long. You know, you could get like a minimum of 3-4 hours out of that thing. So to then take this step down, it does sting a little, but it's a way more powerful device. Other handhelds on the market are in a very similar, if not slightly worse boat. I've got a Steam Deck, I love it to bits, but there are some games where I can expect to only get, realistically, an hour, maybe an hour and a half if I'm really lucky, and that's like without the brightness being maximum. I cannot stress that enough. The brightness was at maximum. And when you consider the form factor of the Switch 2, it is a slim little bean. You know, realistically, it's not using that much power. I don't know precisely how much power it's using yet. I do want to find that out. I just haven't yet. But if you need more battery life out of it, I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'm just playing it on the sofa if I'm doing handheld. And so I'm right next to a plug socket. I just plug it in. But obviously, if you're off and out and about, you can't do that always. I mean, you can sometimes if you're on a train or something, or airport. But in that instance, just take a battery with you. You know, it doesn't have to be a super duper one. There are so many incredible options these days. You know, some that can output 100 watts, which is baffling. I really don't think it's an unreasonable battery life. It's not as amazing as I wish it was, but realistically, you've got to temper your expectations. It is a modern device running modern software. It's always going to be compromised somewhere, and to be honest, it still beats things like the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally when it comes to, like, the minimum amount of time you can play it. But I did say I would discuss the individuals who have been having issues and reporting things like only an hour or 90 minutes playing, it's usually Mario Kart World. And I do think that there's probably a simple and boring explanation for it. Background downloads. Hi, it's me again. I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that I know some people have been having issues with the calibration of their batteries. That's not something that affected my unit, and that is another factor that could explain those things, but it could also just be the background downloads. All of these reports were on like the first few days of the Switch 2's launch. You know, when people are doing system transfers and downloading all their old games onto their new console, That's a lot of background downloads, and they do tank your battery life. Now, there are some games that actually pause your background downloads in order to free up as many of the system resources as they can to just run the game as well as it can. And do you want to know what game doesn't do that? Mario Kart World. With respect to these individuals, I think it was just a case of having a massive download queue and running Mario Kart World at the same time, because come on, who wasn't playing Mario Kart World the first day the Switch 2 came out? I did say it was a boring explanation, but what do you think? Have you been finding the Switch 2 battery life to be absolutely atrocious, or fine? Let us know in the comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, why don't you click that subscribe button constantly for 2 hours and 10 minutes, only breaking for a Wii once, and be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.